Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 12th of February, 2024. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So an exciting announcement for you guys. I booked in a time to record a new Daily Gwei drive-thru episode with Eric Connor actually tomorrow. So we're going to record it tomorrow, which is Tuesday, and then it's going to be out on Saturday. I don't expect much to change between Tuesday and Saturday, but we're actually not going to talk about like the latest news or anything like that. What we're going to talk about mainly we're going to spend a good chunk of time on is basically giving our bull case for ETH this cycle, why we believe ETH is going to around 15,000 to 20,000 US dollars, and kind of what justifies that in our minds. Now, of course, a lot of the stuff that we talk about is probably not going to be quote unquote news to you guys, because you would have heard a lot of it on the Refuel before, and you would have seen Eric tweeting about it or posting about it elsewhere before. But I think that what we want to do is we want to give like basically just a nice condensed version of that bull case that you could show to friends and family that ask you, so that they actually understand why ETH, is going to be valuable or more valuable than it is today, and why it's going to retain its value and everything that kind of falls off of that. Now, obviously, it won't be comprehensive. We're not going to be able to touch on everything. Well, that's what the bulk of the episode is going to be, and then we'll probably hit on things like restaking as well. I think in particular we want to discuss how restaking is still misunderstood. Like I see a lot of people comparing it to like the 2008 kind of banking crisis and rehypothecation and everything just being kind of like of House of Cards, basically, which is, as you guys know, as you've heard me rant on about before, it is pretty much nothing like that. For the sole reason that you can actually see that the collateral's there. It's all transparent, right? It's not opaque. But I'll save the rest of that discussion for tomorrow's episode. But yeah, as I said, it's going to be recorded tomorrow, but it'll be out on Saturday. So I'll keep you guys waiting for a little bit there, just because obviously there's going to be refuels during the week. It's funny though, if there's a rug fuel on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, I'll just release the episode on those days instead of releasing it on Saturday. So I guess like this is probably the one week that you guys are praying for a rug fuel, because then you'll get the Eric and Sassel bullish episode earlier. But maybe it's the 1 week where I don't do a rug fuel. We'll have to see, right? Anyway, I'm gonna leave that at that. Just wanted to announce it to you guys that it will be recorded tomorrow. Going out at Saturday is the plan, but if there is a rug fuel, I'll put it out earlier, to make up for that there. All right, moving on. So I put out a tweet today after discussing this with a few people and seeing more people discuss this over the last few months. But the tweet that I put out reads, if you're building a project on Ethereum and you haven't done a token yet, there are two things that you can do to get your project on everyone's radar. The first thing, airdrop tokens to ETH stakers, in particular home stakers. And the second thing, allocate up to 1% of the token supply to the protocol guild. And of course, I continued and I said, if you want to learn more about this, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help in any way I can for free, of course. So this is not anything new. This has been talked about for a while now. I know that Justin Drake's gone on Bankless podcast before, and it was a while ago now, where he said, if you're a solo staker or a home staker, you're going to get airdrop tokens and so on and so forth. But that hasn't really materialized at this point, right? And for two reasons. I think the one reason is that, probably the top reason is that it's pretty difficult to identify solo stakers, right? It's pretty difficult to identify home stakers. It's not impossible. We've seen Radar.network put out some work around this, but it is pretty involved, and there's no kind of standard here. And you can go back further and identify them easier. Like if you say, okay, well, I want to identify who was a solo or home staker for the first couple of months of the beacon chain, it'd be very easy to basically say that most, if not all of those stakers, or most of them, not all of them, but like most of them were probably kind of your home stakers, your solo stakers. But then since then, obviously, we've had the advent of LSTs, centralized exchanges, and services getting involved in staking and so on and so forth. So it's become a lot more difficult. So just getting that list of people to airdrop to is the first kind of hurdle. And the second hurdle, which isn't really a hurdle, but it's like this, I think the second reason why this hasn't really happened is because no one's gone first, right? It hasn't become a trend. Normally in crypto, what happens is that things just become trends very quickly. Like, let's just say a project was to airdrop to ETH stakers, right? And airdrop to home stakers and airdrop to even people that stake as part of staking pools. Let's say a project does that. Then the expectation would be that other projects would follow suit, because now that one project, especially if it's like a popular project, would have set the trend. And then the other ones will follow suit because suddenly all the users are demanding it, and the users are going to get angry if this doesn't happen, right? So I think that's going to be happening. And then and kind of mix that in with the fact that there's going to be a lot of airdrops to stakers anyway because of the liquid restaking projects, right? Puffer, EtherFi, and Swell, just to name three of them. I mean, there's plenty of them, but just to name three of them, haven't got tokens yet, but have very clearly stated that they're going to have tokens and that you're going to get the tokens for staking with them, basically. So I think it's going to materialize. I think this is actually going to be a main theme going forward, but it requires that just one, relatively big project to get it all started. And I think that's going to happen relatively soon. I mean, I hope it happens sooner rather than later, obviously, but I think that's really what's going to get things kickstarted. And then we can hopefully coalesce around a nice little, whether it's a GitHub document or something that lists out, hey, these are the solo stakers, right? These are the home stakers. These are the people that you should be airdropping to. And there was some people saying that, how would this help anyone? How would this help anyone by giving money to just giving more money to already rich people? Because they were thinking that I meant just solo stakers, which obviously if you want to be a true solo staker, you need 32 ETH. I'm not just talking about solo stakers here, guys. I'm talking about home stakers as well. I'm talking about people who do staking via something like Obel's DVT tech as part of a squad. I'm talking about people doing rocket pool staking, right? Yes, it's still a fair bit of money, but obviously it's a lot less than 32 ETH. But at the same time, shouldn't you want to reward the most plugged in people into the ecosystem? Like, I bet you the home stakers generally are the most plugged in people in the Ethereum ecosystem because of the fact that they have so much money at stake, literally, right, at stake here. And they are so invested in the Ethereum ecosystem that it's, worth their time to keep up with it. It's worth their time to be involved with it. I know a lot of home stakers, guys, and they are all very, very active within Ethereum. So why wouldn't you want to reward these people? Because then they become your biggest kind of marketing vehicle, right? That's how I view it anyway. That's on the first point there. The second point is rather self-explanatory, right? Allocating up to 1% of the total token supply to the Protocol Guild is something that has already kind of begun. It is a trend that's already started, and it's part of the Protocol Guild pledge that I covered the other day that Tim Byko published about. But essentially, this pledge is, you give 1% or up to 1% of your token supply to the Protocol Guild, and it doesn't matter what project you are. It doesn't matter if you're a layer 2, if you're a DeFi app, if you're some kind of like new restaking thing. It doesn't matter, right? If you're going to do a token, the kind of trend now, expectation from the community is that you allocate at least 1% of it to the Protocol Guild, because the Protocol Guild is made up of the people literally, keeping your project alive on Ethereum, because they are maintaining the Ethereum network, they are upgrading the Ethereum network, and they are the most valuable people within Ethereum. The core devs and researchers, in my opinion, are the most valuable people in Ethereum, and they should be rewarded for that. But you guys know my whole opinion on that. But that trend has already started. So really, the second point is something that we're already seeing. So we don't have to really kind of shout that too much from the rooftops. But the first point is something that I want to see a trend form around, and I think we're going to see that very, very soon. Even if a project that's not a liquid restaking project does this, it just kickstarts that trend. And that alone will be a very nice flywheel for kickstarting more value accrual to ETH, because then people will be like, wow, okay, I have to stake more ETH, right? I have to keep my ETH staked longer because I'm going to get airdrops, right? We've already seen this play out in some other ecosystems, but I do think that all it takes is one semi-big project. It doesn't even have to be a large, really large project. It can be like a relatively large project, right? If it's too small, it just won't get enough attention, but a relatively large or relatively hyped up project, all it takes is them to do this. And they need to do it in a big way as well. They can't just do like a small airdrop. You can't just do like 1% of your token supply. You need to do more than that. You need to do in a big way. You need to make headlines with this airdrop. It needs to be a big dollar amount, right? Obviously, you can't exactly plan for the dollar amount, but at the same time, you can kind of have a rough estimate of what it would look like, and then that starts the trend. So we'll see sooner rather than later, hopefully. We'll see what happens there. But there are some major projects in Ethereum that haven't done tokens yet, right? Like, there's plenty of layer 2s that haven't done tokens yet. There's obviously Eigenlayer hasn't done their token yet, and same with the LRT projects. So the projects are there. I mean, they have the choice to do this or not, and some of them have already dedicated or announced that they're going to be donating 1% of their token supply to the Protocol Guild. So they're halfway there. They're doing that. Let's do the first thing here. Airdrop to ETH stakers, in particular home stakers, and let's get that flywheel started. At least that's my kind of bull case for that, and I'm hoping to see some of that going forward. All right, so Justin Drake got everyone talking over the weekend because he tweeted out a picture of a little ASIC chip here where he said, "This is the first ever SNARK proving ASIC. Real-time proving, real-time settlement, universal synchronous composability, coming sooner than most think. We can fix Ethereum fragmentation." So, of course, Justin Drake did a podcast with Bankless last week all about Ethereum fragmentation. You should definitely go check that out. I think I shouted that out last week, but I wanted to kind of give the TLDR on what this is. So, you guys know at this point that within Ethereum, the kind of general gist or the general roadmap is that we expect the builders of blocks to be centralized, right? We expect the builders of blocks to be centralized, and we expect the verification of that, of the blocks and of the network, to be decentralized. Now, the closest, or I guess like the perfect way to describe this right now is MEV Boost. Within the MEV Boost network, the block builders are very centralized. There's only like 5 of them that account for 90+% of the blocks being built, right? Which isn't great for censorship resistance guarantees, but we have other ways to fix that, like inclusion lists and stuff like that. But block builder centralization is just the logical conclusion or the logical kind of end state of all the financial incentives at play here. Okay, so if you accept that the reality or the future reality, I mean, it is the reality today, but if you expect this is going to be something that is going to be very sticky, block building is going to be incredibly centralized, then you have to basically say, okay, well, we're fine with block building being centralized as long as block verification and network verification generally is decentralized. And that's what comes in with the validators, because the validators are, there's many more validators, or many more node operators, I should say, on the network than there are block builders. If there's 5 block builders, there are thousands of node operators, right? If not tens of thousands of node operators. That's what really matters for decentralization, because they are verifying that the blocks are, valid. They are verifying that the blocks are following, obviously, the network rules. They're attesting to these blocks, and they're doing this in a decentralized way, right? Rather than the block builders, obviously, they're doing it in a very centralized way, but they're for-profit entities. They're doing what's in the best interest of their pockets, and that's the kind of economic incentives at play here. Now, where that kind of fits into what Justin Drake tweeted about is essentially we can use these ASICs to, we can bolt them onto like basically beefy machines, and we can push all of the block building, whether that be at layer 1 or layer 2, to these beefy things. But, and then it's still going to stay centralized, still going to stay beefy, but the verification is very lightweight. And in the future, it's going to be as lightweight as not even needing a full node. You can just do that with a light client, right? You can run a validator off a light client. You don't even need to have a full node in order to do this. So verification remains extremely lightweight, even lighter weight with these ASICs, and block building remains still centralized as it is today, and that is the plan. Like, we've accepted that that's going to be centralized, but that's okay, because the real value of a decentralized network is in the verification, not in the actual building of the blocks. But then, obviously, as I said, there are some drawbacks to this, such as censorship resistance, which we're tackling in other ways, such as inclusion lists and PBS to deal with the relays and things like that, right? We're tackling this in different ways, but that's orthogonal, I guess, to the kind of point that I'm making around the fact that we have accepted that centralized block building is going to be the case no matter which way we designed Ethereum, right? It's just going to be the case due to economic incentives. So let's go all in on that. Let's do things like SNARK proving ASICs, and let's make it all composable, and let's make it all kind of, make it so that all these block builders basically compose all these transactions together, and then we get the decentralized verification from the validators on the network and from the full nodes and from light clients and so on and so forth. So that really is the end game here. I don't, the thing is that these ASICs are not going to be doing SNARK proving of layer 1 until the layer 1 becomes snarkified, which is a long-term roadmap item. Like, I wouldn't expect that to happen for many years at this stage, but at the same time, you extend this out to the L2s, and that's where the power really starts to shine, because the L2s are already ZK, right? The ZK EVMs, and they run on Starks and SNARKs and other kind of primitives from that lens. So you extend that out to that, and those block builders are also going to be centralized. We call them sequencers, but at the same time, we accept that they are going to be that. Then we allow them to basically beef themselves up with these SNARK proving ASICs, or just ASICs in general, and then we still have the lightweight verification of Ethereum L1 and of the validators that exist on these L2s as well. And then we basically have an L2 that looks like an L1, and as I said, we have that fast settlement, real-time and cheap proving, which brings costs down for layer 2s. And then we have that composability as well, which is, again, why Justin says here we can fix Ethereum fragmentation, because this is another way of fixing it. He spoke about shared sequencing and stuff like that as well, but there are a lot of different ways to do this stuff. So that's what, I got me very excited. And there was some confusion around this, people saying, didn't we kind of like get off proof of work to make it so that verifying the network would be lightweight? It's like, and not use electricity and not have to require beefy machines and things like that. And that's correct, completely correct. But I guess as I just explained to you guys, there's a difference between verification of the blocks and building the blocks. And building the blocks is okay to be centralized and require beefy nodes, but verifying the blocks needs to be lightweight. It needs to be accessible to as many people as possible in order to keep the network decentralized. And I just want to point out one last thing about the term ASIC. ASIC just stands for Application Specific Integrated Circuit, I think, or Integrated Chip. It's just like an acronym for a chip that does a very specific thing, at least from my understanding. It doesn't mean that it's some beefy miner machine. It can be a chip that's put into a beefy machine, or it can be a chip that's put into a lightweight machine. They're just chips that do a very specific thing. So this chip in particular is a chip that does SNARK proving. So because it's been optimized to prove SNARKs, it can do, as Justin said here, real-time proving with real-time settlement, and it can be very, very cheap to do this as opposed to doing it with a normal kind of chip that you would find in a consumer hardware, right? And again, that's the incentives at play here. Like if it's cheaper and it's more efficient and you can make more money doing it with an application-specific chip, that's what's going to happen. People are going to optimize for that hardware. But at the same time, that's fine because block building, as we said, we accept is centralized and accept that the incentives are to lead it to be centralized, but we can keep block verification and chain verification very, very lightweight. And that is how we keep the chain decentralized. So yeah, we're going to leave that one at that. There is another tweet from David Hoffman here, or I guess I should say Cast, because it's on Farcaster, where he actually kind of plays off of what Justin was saying here, where he says, the final form of Ethereum is a trivially easy to verify L1, goes back to what I was just saying about ease of verification of L1, that natively verifies L2 cryptographic proofs, ZK EVM proofs, right? Or ZK proofs in general, I shouldn't say ZK EVM proofs. ZK proofs in general, which issues ETH to incentivize the increasing value and density contained in these proofs. Obviously, ETH has the Ethereum network is secured by ETH, which is its economic security. So that plays into basically everything built on top. And then David finishes by saying Ethereum consumes cryptographic proofs and produces cryptocurrency ETH. I think that's just a really nice way of summarizing what ETH does and what Ethereum is. And then I replied to him saying Ethereum is basically a root of trust, if you will, right? And I think I've mentioned this term before. Ethereum L1 is a root of trust for all of these ZKPs and other kind of cryptographic primitives that exist outside of the chain, but we can be sure are still following the rules because they're using zero knowledge technology, right? And we can be sure following the rules, and they are, and by putting themselves on Ethereum, they are secured by Ethereum, right? And the bridge for these L2s exists on Ethereum, which is secured by Ethereum. You have things like escape patches, so we have all these nice things that can be built around it. But really, this is the real kind of use of a layer 1 blockchain, guys. And this is why I'm so bearish on the monolithic architecture of a layer 1 blockchain. It's got nothing to do with bag bias, nothing to do with any particular project. I just don't think that the monolithic approach to a blockchain, to an L1 blockchain, is the right approach here. For the simple reason that I think a blockchain does one thing, like a layer 1 blockchain, I should say, does one thing, and it does it very, very well. And that's being a root of trust. That's being a place to store things that you need, like ZKPs, right? Things that you need to settle onto a, censorship-resistant, credibly neutral, decentralized base layer, which is exactly what Ethereum L1 is optimizing for. And then we push everything else to L2s. And yes, okay, in the short term, or short to medium term, it breaks a few things, right? It fragments liquidity, it breaks the user experience a little bit, or a lot, depending on, what wallet you're using, right? But in the long term, it is the most sustainable, secure, decentralized, credibly neutral, amazing way to scale a blockchain. And that is why I'm so bullish on the modular approach. That is why the modular approach is going to win, and that is why I think any monolithic chains that end up surviving will be modular chains. They will not survive as a monolithic chain, and you're already seeing some of the top monolithic chains pivot away from being true monoliths and going into a more modular approach because they know that it's not sustainable being a monolith. They know that it is not going to work long term, and they know that you can't just run everything on a single layer. But of course, they've sold the hopes and dreams on that, so they've kind of like, will take a while to pivot here, but I do think that the best way of not just scaling, but the best sustainable way to build these things is through the modular approach. And we will fix the issues around fragmentation. We will fix the issues around user experience. Those are not kind of like deal breakers for the modular approach. They're just things that we have to work through. They're just kind of like engineering issues, if you will, right? They're not anything fundamentally wrong with the modular roadmap there. Anyway. Enough on that. Moving on to, I guess, something related to that, which is something that Dono, who does research at L2B, posted, which is an ETH research post titled Universal Plasma and DA Challenges. Now, I think that I've talked about a similar construction maybe a few weeks ago where essentially, I think Vitalik actually brought this up a few months ago now, where he said that we could use Plasma, which was one of the original Ethereum scaling kind of mechanisms, to basically bolt that on to data availability challenges within things like optimistic rollups and validiums. Now, there's a new ETH research post here, not very long, from Dono. You can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But basically, it goes over what, how this could actually work here, what the actual construction could potentially look like, among other things. So it's not, as I said, it's not a long post, but you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. And there's also Vitalik's original blog post from November. So it was a few months ago, where he titled it "Exit Games for EVM Validiums: The Return of Plasma." And I remember at the time I made a bit of a meme about it, saying that Plasma's back, guys. Like it's come back from the dead. But yeah, this is essentially kind of using a old construction called Plasma in order to do maybe bolt it on to things like Validiums to do DA challenges. So yeah, you can go check this out. I just wanted to put it on your radar. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so ZK-P2P has an update for us over the weekend, where they said now users can use ZK-P2P while paying zero transaction fees on Base. Powered by Privy and ZeroDev, anyone can acquire USDC without needing to download a wallet or bridge ETH from another chain. All you have to do is go to zkp2p.xyz to get started. And as I say here, this makes ZK-P2P gas-free. Transaction fees are sponsored via a paymaster. Wallet-free. They use Privy to create an embedded signer that signs transactions for your wallet, and hassle-free. Get on Base in 90 seconds without seed phrases or any wallet setups. And they run through how this kind of works a little bit in the thread, as well as a 1-minute video here showing you how this works. And you guys know that ZK-P2P is a project that I've talked about before. They're basically making it so that you can onboard trustlessly through something like Venmo onto Ethereum, onto Base, and there are relatively small limits, but I think this is a really great way to do this, in a trustless way, to do it using, I think it's a really cool use case of ZKPs in order to get your first lot of funds on Base or on, Ethereum L1 without having to go through a centralized exchange. And this is just another way to onboard here, and it's a really, really cool way to onboard, mind you. So yeah, you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below, but I also wanted to highlight just how easy this is from a UX perspective. As I said, it's gas-free, which means that there are transaction fees, but they're so low that they're able to be sponsored via something called a paymaster. It's wallet-free, so it's all done within the browser, because Privy allows you to create an embedded signer that signs transactions for your wallet. This is similar to, I think, something like FriendTech, right? And hassle-free, you can get on Base in 90 seconds without seed phrases or any wallet setup. So that's the UX kind of goal there, guys. You can just get these people on, straight away with the kind of Ethereum address, or with a Base wallet, Ethereum wallet, whatever you want to call it here, and have them on board from their existing kind of apps that they use, such as something like Venmo here. So yeah, you can see it in the video. I'll link the video in the YouTube description below. But this is the stuff that's going to lead to mass adoption. I think that centralized exchanges are great kind of gateways into this stuff, but they're cumbersome gateways, right? Imagine an app wanting to bring someone on board, right? And then this someone doesn't have any crypto to begin with. So the app could say, okay, we'll go to Coinbase or go to Binance and sign up and do the KYC and put your money in there from your bank account and get your first crypto and then withdraw it to our app, right? Or they can use one of these onboarding vehicles such as ZK-P2P to get the user onboarded in less than a minute. Because doing it through the centralized exchange for a brand new user could potentially take days to get onboarded, right? Because not only do you have to wait for the KYC, but you also have to wait for the deposit to hit your crypto exchange. From the bank account to the crypto exchange, you have to wait for that deposit to hit. And then at any point along the way, something could just be put on hold for some fraud reasons or whatever, because obviously fraud is a big issue, scams a big issue, so that could happen there. Or you could go through something that you already use. A lot of people in the US already have Venmo. So they go to a site, and they go to some crypto app, and the crypto app's like, hey, you don't have any funds, but hey, onboard via Venmo using ZK-P2P, get your first funds on Base. So they don't have to say what it is. They can just say, get your first funds on our app. Maybe it's Farcaster, right? And then away you go. You can get started with everything. So that's the future of onboarding. I think centralized exchanges are still going to be obviously big onboarding vehicles, but they're just slower onboarding vehicles. They're never going to be as fast as something like this. They're much slower because of the reasons I outlined. And at the same time, a lot of people signing up to centralized exchanges, they're not doing it to come on chain a lot of the time. They're doing it to basically speculate on crypto, right? And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I think that we're going to see that again once the market heats up. People are just going to download the Coinbase app, and you're going to see it climb up the rank of the App Store, and they're going to go buy any number of coins on there just to speculate on them, and they're not going to withdraw them to their own wallet or anything like that. They're just going to speculate on there. Coinbase is in a bit of a unique position where they can actually push people towards Base, because obviously that's in their best interest to do that, but I'm going to be very curious to see how that plays out, because Base wasn't around last bull market, and it is this bull market. So is Coinbase going to capitalize on that? I think they will, but again, it is more cumbersome still than just onboarding via something like ZK-P2P. So I'm glad this exists. I'm glad some other kind of fiat on-ramps exist that are similar to this, but I think ZK-P2P is doing it the coolest way by integrating ZK proofs into this and not relying on kind of, too many centralized intermediaries. Obviously, they still rely on Venmo here, but Venmo is built, to be a P2P app. So they're just harnessing what was already built as part of the kind of TradFi ecosystem and bringing that into the Web3 ecosystem. All right, speaking of Farcaster, over the weekend, the EtherFi account got suspended along with Renzo and Wormhole accounts. Now, Mike here, who is the CEO at EtherFi, said, really glad we pay $1,000 a month for a verified org subscription so that we can submit an anonymous appeal form and have no phone number or email support of any kind. And then I quote tweeted this and I said, I'm so glad that we now have Farcaster as a backup for Twitter. Hopefully Farcaster becomes the primary platform for the crypto ecosystem and Twitter gets relegated to being the backup. Not that we'll need it since Farcaster is decentralized. You guys know that I've been going on about Farcaster for a long time and a lot more recently. This is one of the reasons, honestly. Like, I've been very bearish on Twitter or X, or whatever you want to call it, since Elon took over. It just seems to have gotten worse and worse. I know that a lot of the app has stayed relatively the same in that, you still, send tweets out. You can still do tweet threads. You can do like longer tweets now. And you got the retweets and likes and everything. Like the UX has generally stayed pretty similar, but it's a lot of the kind of like stuff surrounding it. So for example, the scammers and bots are still running rampant, right? Like they're absolutely everywhere. Every time I tweet anything, they're there immediately. So Elon's promise of getting rid of them isn't there. A lot of crypto Twitter, or a lot of Twitter, I should say, has become very political. I'm always coming across political posts. Like, no matter how many words I mute, no matter how many accounts I mute, I'm always coming across just like inflammatory, really shitty political posts that I don't want to see. And it's super annoying. Like, I can't, there's no way for me to filter it out without just manually going to like, muting words and stuff, but it always pops up. Like, I'm pretty sure the mute feature is broken because I'm seeing things from words and I've got the word muted, but I'm still seeing it. So it's just bizarre to me, right? Whereas with Farcaster, you have channels. The way I browse Farcaster, I don't even go to my home feed. I just go to the channels and I browse through there, and it's beautiful because the channels are moderated. It's like a hybrid of Twitter and Reddit where you have moderators of a channel. The moderators are going to remove all the crap, and then you won't have to be exposed to it, right? Because anyone can obviously post whatever they want in the channels, but it's just a much better and much cleaner experience. And that's the number one thing I loved about Reddit, is that you had moderators. And I know there's censorship concerns, but like at the end of the day, I'm okay with giving up a little bit of, I guess, control to these moderators to moderate things if it means a little bit of, I wouldn't even call it censorship, if it means risk of censorship, just to have a much cleaner feed. Because at least with Farcaster, the beautiful thing is that if these moderators start kind of censoring en masse, you can just create a different channel and you can just go to that channel and other people can join that channel. You can use a different client if the client starts censoring, because Farcaster is a protocol to build these things on. Whereas with Twitter, you have none of this. Twitter is not a protocol. Twitter is a centralized service that is managed by a centralized company that doesn't seem to give a shit about all of the issues with Twitter right now. All they seem to care about is essentially kind of continuing the status quo and just making things worse over time. Like, as I said, the scams and bots are probably worse than they were when, before Elon took over. The value of Twitter has gone down dramatically, right? As a business, they fired pretty much, well, they seem to have fired all of their customer support people, because anytime you want to get your account back, even as a relatively big account, it can take a long time to do that. They randomly suspend accounts for no reason. I mean, what reason did they have to suspend EtherFi, right? Like, I can't think of any. But then they'll let the scams and the bots run rampant, and that issue still exists. I mean, I've seen impersonators of me stay up for weeks, if not months at a time. Like, I go back and I'm like, what the fuck? Why is this account still here? It's literally impersonating me. Yet they'll ban these legitimate accounts. It's really, really bad, guys. And that's why I've been really bearish on Twitter. And that's why I'm so happy that Farcaster is this alternative now. And as I said, I hope it becomes the primary platform. I don't want it to be the alternative for crypto Twitter, the crypto ecosystem. I want it to be the primary platform. so that there's no risk anymore of getting rugged on these things, because like crypto has gone through a lot of kind of phases of having different platforms. Like I think Bitcoin talk forums were very popular to begin with. Then it moved to Reddit, and then Reddit moved to Twitter, and now Twitter seems to be moving to Farcaster. And I really just don't want to have to move every few years. I would rather us just have like an ecosystem that is kind of crypto native, that we can go on, that we can have certain guarantees around being decentralized and relatively censorship resistant, right? Because it fractures everything. It fractures the community. It makes things annoying. It makes, you have to rebuild your audience again, because you can't bring your social graph with you from these centralized services and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd rather us just like stick to one platform, and I'm hoping Farcaster can be that platform, because it is not just a platform, it is a protocol, right? Like, yeah, I use Warpcast, but if Warpcast started censoring things, we'll be like, okay, well, by Warpcast, I'm going to use something else. Maybe I'll just use my own local client instead, or my own local version of Warpcast. I'll fork it and do my own thing, right? Because I can talk to the Farcaster protocol in a decentralized way. So yeah, just a little bit of a rant there. It kind of annoys me, because I've invested so much time on Twitter. I've grown such a large following on there, and I do still enjoy the user experience of Twitter, honestly. Like as I said, the UX has remained largely the same in terms of just being able to kind of interact with people, and it feels very smooth and things like that. And it's just the other stuff that's just letting it down. And I don't think anything's going to change under Elon. Maybe he sells it to someone else. I don't think his ego will let him do that, but hey, who knows, right? I just think that it's just very sad what's happened to Twitter. I'm not hopeful at this point that anything's really going to change for the better. I am very hopeful about Farcaster, and as you guys know, I've been doing more and more stuff on there. I have the Daily Gwei channel on there now that you guys can interact with me on, which is just so awesome. Like, you can't really do that on Twitter, right? So yeah, I'm just super excited about continuing to use Farcaster. But anyway, going to leave that at that for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.